In this episode, we're going to focus on one of the most important real-world uses of hashing, storing passwords in a way that still protects people when something goes wrong. Beginners often assume that if a system is breached, everything is lost, but password storage is one place where careful design can dramatically limit damage. The uncomfortable truth is that breaches happen, and leadership-level security thinking includes planning for that reality instead of betting everything on perfect prevention. Password storage that survives breaches is about ensuring that even if attackers steal the password database, they cannot easily turn it into working passwords. That protects users from account takeover, reduces downstream harm from password reuse, and gives the organization time to respond. To do this well, you need a modern hashing strategy that is designed specifically for passwords, not a generic hash, and you need supporting practices like salting, controlled verification, and sensible account protections. When you understand these ideas, you can evaluate whether a system is responsibly designed or dangerously naive. Start with the baseline rule that should never be violated. Passwords must not be stored in plaintext. Plaintext storage means the system keeps the exact password, readable as is, which turns any database exposure into immediate compromise. It also means insiders or attackers with database access can see user secrets directly, which is unacceptable. The next rule is almost as important. Passwords should not be stored with reversible encryption as the primary protection, because encryption implies there is a key that can decrypt the stored values. If attackers obtain the encryption key, or if the key is accessible to the application in a way attackers can exploit, then the protection can collapse quickly. A strong hashing strategy avoids this by storing a one-way derived value, not a reversible secret. The system does not need to recover the password. It only needs to verify whether a password attempt matches the stored derived value. That verification model is what makes hashing the right tool here, because it supports authentication without creating a decryptable treasure chest. When a user sets a password, the system should transform it using a password hashing function that is intentionally slow and resource-intensive. This sounds counterintuitive at first, because we usually want systems to be fast, but password hashing is a special case. Attackers who steal a database will try to guess passwords offline, meaning they can test billions of guesses without hitting your login rate limits. The defense is to make each guess expensive so that large-scale guessing becomes slower, more costly, and less feasible. A password hashing function should also be designed to resist specialized hardware advantage, because attackers often use powerful equipment to accelerate guessing. Leaders do not need to memorize specific algorithm names to understand the principle. You want a password-specific hashing approach that is built for resisting guessing, not a generic cryptographic hash used for integrity. If someone proposes storing passwords using a fast hash designed for file fingerprints, that is a red flag because speed helps attackers. Salting is one of the most important supporting concepts, and it is frequently misunderstood. A salt is a random value that is unique per password and stored alongside the derived value, and it is combined with the password during hashing. The salt is not a secret, and it is not meant to be protected like a key. Its job is to ensure that the same password does not produce the same stored hash across different users, which prevents attackers from using pre-computed tables to reverse many passwords at once. Without salts, if two users choose the same password, they will have the same stored hash, which reveals patterns and enables attackers to crack many accounts efficiently. With salts, each account's stored hash becomes unique even if the passwords match, forcing attackers to attack each account separately. Leaders should remember that salting does not stop guessing, but it removes a major efficiency advantage attackers rely on. It is one of the simplest ways to make a breach less catastrophic. You will also hear the term pepper, and it is useful to understand it at a leadership level without overcomplicating. A pepper is a secret value added to the password hashing process that is not stored in the password database, and it is typically stored in a more protected place. The idea is that if attackers steal the database but do not obtain the pepper, they have a harder time verifying guesses. This can be a valuable additional layer, but it comes with operational trade-offs because it introduces another secret that must be protected, managed, and available to the authentication system. Pepper can reduce risk, but it is not a substitute for a proper password hashing function, and it can create a single point of failure if mishandled. Leaders should ask whether the organization has the discipline to protect that extra secret and what the recovery plan is if it is compromised. The main lesson is that password storage is a layered defense, and each layer should be assessed for both security benefit and operational reliability. Good design balances both rather than chasing complexity for its own sake. Work factor and tuning are critical because password hashing is not a one-size-fits-all choice, and modern strategies allow adjustment over time. A work factor is a parameter that controls how expensive it is to compute the password hash, which directly affects both user login performance and attacker guessing cost. If the work factor is too low, attackers can guess quickly. If it is too high, legitimate logins may become slow and create operational pain. The goal is to choose a work factor that is comfortable for legitimate use but expensive enough to make offline attacks costly. Leaders should understand that this is not a one-time decision because computing power changes over time. A system should be designed so the work factor can be increased gradually as hardware improves, and so older stored hashes can be upgraded when users log in. This is a kind of crypto agility applied to password storage, and it is a sign of mature design. A modern password storage strategy also includes safe verification behavior, because attackers will try to exploit subtle weaknesses in how comparisons are done. One important idea is constant time comparison, which reduces the risk that timing differences reveal information about the stored values. Even if the database is protected, attackers may try to probe the login process to learn clues about correct guesses. Another important behavior is controlling error messages so the system does not reveal whether a username exists or whether a password was close. Leaders do not need to implement these details, but they should recognize that authentication is an attack surface and that password hashing is only one part of defending it. Rate limiting, account lockout policies that avoid creating denial of service, and detection of suspicious login patterns all contribute to resilience. The goal is to make both offline guessing and online guessing difficult, because attackers will try both. Password storage survives breaches best when it is paired with sensible access and monitoring controls. One of the most common misconceptions is that salting means you can safely store passwords with any hash function because the salt will save you. That is not true because if the hash function is fast, attackers can still guess quickly, just one account at a time. Another misconception is that complexity rules alone, like requiring symbols and numbers, are sufficient to protect users. Complexity can help somewhat, but users often respond by choosing predictable patterns, and attackers know those patterns well. A third misconception is that password hashing eliminates the need for stronger authentication, but password hashing is primarily about limiting damage after a breach, not about preventing account takeover through phishing or credential reuse. Leaders should see password hashing as a safety net, not as the entire identity strategy. Stronger authentication methods can reduce dependence on passwords, but as long as passwords exist, their storage must be robust. The combination of defenses is what creates real resilience. A leadership-level way to evaluate password storage is to imagine the worst day. The password database is stolen and posted publicly. What happens next depends on design. If passwords were stored in plain text, accounts are instantly compromised, and users may be harmed across other services due to password reuse. If passwords were stored with reversible encryption and the key is accessible, the same may happen quickly. If passwords were stored with fast, unsalted hashes, attackers can crack many common passwords rapidly using pre-computed techniques and high-speed guessing. If passwords were stored with salts and a password-specific hashing function tuned to be expensive, then attackers face a slower, more expensive cracking process, and many accounts with stronger passwords may remain safe long enough for users to reset. That time difference matters because it gives the organization a window to respond, force resets, notify users, and tighten controls. Survivable password storage is about buying time and reducing scale, turning a breach from immediate catastrophe into a manageable crisis. Leaders should care about this because breach impact is not only technical, it is reputational and legal as well. Password storage strategy also connects to account recovery and reset workflows, which are often weaker than the storage itself. If an attacker cannot crack stored hashes easily, they may pivot to taking over accounts through password reset mechanisms, social engineering, or intercepting recovery channels. That means survivable design includes strong reset procedures, careful verification of user identity during recovery, and monitoring for suspicious reset patterns. Another important point is that forcing frequent password changes without cause can backfire, because it encourages predictable changes and increases help desk burden, which can lead to insecure shortcuts. Leaders should aim for policies that encourage strong, memorable secrets and that trigger resets based on evidence of compromise rather than arbitrary schedules. They should also ensure that recovery paths are protected with appropriate controls, because attackers often target the easiest path, not the most direct one. Password hashing is critical, but it lives inside a larger account lifecycle that must be secure as a whole. It is also worth understanding how to evolve legacy systems, because many organizations inherit older password storage approaches. A mature strategy allows gradual migration rather than requiring a disruptive cutover. One common approach is to store, alongside each user record, metadata about how the password was hashed, including the algorithm family and work factor settings. When a user successfully logs in, the system can rehash the password using the newer, stronger settings and update the stored value. Over time, active accounts migrate naturally without forcing everyone to reset at once. Leaders should like this approach because it improves security without creating unnecessary outages and without encouraging unsafe user behavior. It also supports auditability because you can measure progress and identify remaining weak accounts. The leadership lesson is that survivable design includes a path forward, not just a snapshot of what is true today. When you connect all the pieces, modern password storage is a disciplined response to a predictable threat. Attackers will steal databases and guess passwords offline. The defense is to store only derived values, use unique salts to prevent large-scale pre-computation advantages, choose password-specific hashing functions that make each guess expensive, and tune the work factor so the defense stays strong as computing improves. Additional layers like Pepper can add protection when managed responsibly, and safe verification behavior and monitoring reduce online attack success. Leaders should judge designs by how well they reduce breach impact and how well they support reliable operations, because security controls that cause constant outages will be bypassed. The goal is not to make cracking impossible in every case, but to make it slow, costly, and limited in scale, while giving the organization time to respond. By the end of this episode, you should be able to explain what survivable password storage looks like in one sentence. Even if attackers steal the database, they should not be able to quickly turn it into working passwords at scale. Achieving that requires modern hashing strategies tuned for resistance to guessing, plus salts, disciplined parameters, and secure authentication workflows around it. It also requires leadership willingness to plan for failure and to invest in designs that reduce harm rather than pretending breaches will never happen. When you can speak about password storage with this level of clarity, you can spot dangerous shortcuts, support better policy decisions, and answer exam questions that test whether you understand the difference between reversible secrecy and one-way verification. The broader leadership message is that security is not only about building walls. It is about building systems that fail gracefully when walls are breached, and password storage is one of the clearest places where that philosophy becomes real.
Thanks for listening. For more audio courses, daily newsletters, and more, please visit baremetalcyber.com.